Ozymandias is one of my favorite ever poems, I think. I remember learning this when I was maybe 13, the first time I read it. And I never get bored of it. It's a small poem and there's so much to it, and it's just rich and dense and full of ideas and really makes you think about all kinds of things. So yeah, hopefully by the end of this lesson you'll enjoy it as much as I do. I was trying to figure out how I should introduce it, and I can't really. It's very hard to summarize what's cool about it. So hopefully by the end of the lesson you'll figure out whether you like it or not, and hopefully you do. So I'm going to read it aloud. I recommend reading all poems aloud several times before you kind of get into them, because it sort of gets you into the sort of rhythm or mood of it. So hopefully I do this one justice. Let's give it a go. I met a traveller from an antique land who said, 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things. The hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. So vocab then. Antique, first of all. Obviously, you might know what antiques are. You can buy them in antique shops or auctions, like old objects. In this case, the word antique just means old or ancient. Trunkless means without a trunk. So he's talking about trunkless legs, so legs that stand in the desert without a body, without a torso. So there's these kind of broken legs just sticking out upwards in the desert. Visage just means face, which if you do French, you might know. Sneer is when someone has a superior expression that kind of shows a bit of cruelty and they feel like they're better than everyone. I was trying to explain this word the other day when I was teaching Ozymandias to one of my students, and I really like Harry Potter, and I feel like most people have seen Harry Potter or read it, so they kind of know what I'm on about. But there's a character called Malfoy who's kind of like this evil boy. He's not that bad, but he's sort of like a bit of a bully and kind of cruel. And he's always sneering. He always has this expression where he feels like he's better than everyone. So yeah, think of Malfoy if you know who Malfoy is, and you'll get that word sneer. Sculptor, someone who makes sculptures for a living. So they make objects that are kind of statues or art objects. A pedestal is just a kind of raised column that statues sit on. So usually you don't put really fancy, expensive objects on the ground because it's too low down, so that you put them on a pedestal. You kind of raise them off the ground and you put them on a column. Ye actually should be pronounced the, but I always like the word ye, so I kind of pronounce it ye. But technically that Y in older versions of English used to be pronounced TH. So it literally just means the. It's like an old-fashioned spelling for the word the. So he's saying, look on my works, the mighty, and despair. Look at how great everything is around me and despair at how powerful I am, which is ironic because there's nothing around him. He's just covered in sand. Colossal means huge, like a colossus, a giant statue. And a wreck is something that is damaged or destroyed, a bit like a shipwreck. Boundless means it's got no ending, and lone is just another word for alone, like the Lone Ranger. So hopefully this kind of unlocks or starts to unlock a little bit of the poem for you. There's some legs without a trunk standing in the desert. There's a shattered face lying on the ground. The face has a sneer on it, a bit like Draco Malfoy. And he says, "Look on my works, mighty people." So he wants great people to come and visit him and see this statue and despair and be so frightened by how great everything is around him. But nothing beside remained. So when this was made, it was obviously made to stand in the center of Ozymandias's great kingdom. But now there's nothing remaining of that because it's an antique land. It's from ages ago. So have a look at the story then. I've kind of just written it in the voice of the poem. I don't always do this with summaries, but I feel like it helps with this one. I met a traveller from an ancient land who told me a story. He said 2 huge legs of stone without a body stand in the desert. Near them, a shattered face is lying half sunken into the sand. It has a frown and a wrinkled lip that sneers as if it's giving cold commands or orders. The expression shows that the sculptor who carved the piece knew the man well. He knew his harsh emotions and cold personality, and he captured all of this in the sculpture. These impressions, these emotions still survive on the face of the sculpture, even though the man himself is long dead. His personality is stamped onto these lifeless things, these lifeless fragments. You can see his hand that mocked its people. You can see his heart that fed them. There's also a pedestal that the sculpture would have originally standed on, and on there are these words. "My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. You mighty and great men must look upon my kingdom and feel terror." But there's no kingdom to be seen. Nothing else remains of King Ozymandias and his kingdom except these few broken pieces of his sculpture. Around the decaying and broken colossus, the lonely and flat sands of the desert stretch far away. So what we're looking at is the last few remaining fragments of this once great king, Ozymandias, who is actually thought to be possibly King Ramesses, who's an ancient Egyptian king. So I always imagine this to be set in the Egyptian desert, which I did actually visit once, and I really recommend visiting Egypt if you ever get a chance. It's really an incredible place, one of my favorite places I've ever been to. So I promised I was going to read this poem again, and hopefully now I read it again, it's going to really click into place and make sense. And you're going to feel really confident on it and happy to write about it in your essays. I met a traveller from an antique land who said, 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear: "My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair." Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. I had a really massive urge to just end the whole thing there and not even say goodbye, but it's kind of built in me to say goodbye at the end of a lesson. So yeah, thank you for listening. Hopefully you really enjoy this poem now and you think it's awesome, and I'll see you in future Scribbly lessons. Goodbye for now.